Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So great that you took time out of your day to up your skills with AI and embrace this moment that we're in. It's really important that we do stay ahead, both staying ahead for your competition and make sure that you match the expectations of the time. And yeah, a lot of people have been feeling that they're missed the boat or they're too late, missed the train, but it's not the way at all. And we're all in the same space right now, learning and embracing as many skills and opportunities we can to leverage off one another's, including our partner here, Ash from First Step AI. And especially if you are an SME or a decision maker in your business, you actually have an advantage over many because you are in charge of the decisions that you make. You're in charge of the tools that you're utilizing, and you can really implement to help your business scale, opposed to large corporations and businesses who have to go through many loopholes to actually implement. So this is a great time, and it's a game changer for all of us to really scale at surprising speed. So just to introduce myself quickly, Paula, Head of Growth for OnBoard Outsourcing. We're a team of Australian-led advisory team based here in Sydney, and we also have our HR and leadership team based in Manila. Joining us today, we've got Jessie and Gabriella. They're from our marketing department, and they've really been overseeing and a major part of today's event, helping this really come to life. So thank you guys for being here. With our services, just to give you a background, we are really about connecting you to the right people offshore to ensure that they can handle the tasks that potentially are blocking your time and not giving you enough time to really elevate your business. So right now, not to delay it further, I want to hand this over to Ash and introduce Ash formally. We've got about 20 or so minutes. We've also got a little chat panel where you can add some questions. So if you've got any particular questions that you're really struggling with your AI skills, feel free to add them in the chat and we'll try to address them during the webinar. I've been chatting with Ash for a few months now and learned of some of the amazing case studies and projects that she's actually assisted firsthand. Ash is all about identifying the problems, bringing the solutions using AI automation, and where AI can be complemented, we also have the offshore remote services. So over to you, Ash. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. And hello to everyone. Really happy to be around the table. I've got such a passion point to help businesses just move into this new evolution that we're going through, but with a bit more confidence, a bit more knowledge. I don't come from an IT or a tech background. I actually come from a business context, spending many years in sales, marketing. I see some friendly faces on the line too, so hello to you. But I've been the GM for the last couple of years of a marketing agency. We really needed to move our business into adopting AI and leveraging AIs to remain competitive. And there just wasn't resources around the table. So I've had to go and firsthand learn so much. I've built a business around that since, but really with a passion to be able to give back as much as possible. So today the thinking is, let's start with the fundamentals, which is large language models. I'm hoping it's something that everyone around the table is using today, but I definitely get a lot of maybe concerns in and around it is, yeah, cool, I'm using it, but it's not that good. It's not as good as everyone's raving about. And I think that's because we've jumped into using this new shiny tool, but we actually haven't understood how it works. So I'm going to take you through some real just fundamentals and basics that you can set up your LLM, whether it be Claude, whether it be ChatGPT, whether it be Gemini, or any of the others. They all work in relatively the same way. I'm going to show you how they operate so that you can set them up more effectively and actually treat them like an employee compared to just this person who is in the room but doesn't really know you and keeps spitting out all sorts of different things. So
why don't we actually launch a little poll and we'll get everyone's feedback on what they're using now, what their favorite tools are. So we'll launch that, and by all means, tick off your favorite LLM, and that will also help us present to you today. Thank you.
And don't judge how many tabs I've got open. That's how my brain works. But let me jump in here. And Paula, if you can tell me what the poll says, how many people we've got on ChatGPT, that would be great. I'm really keen to learn that, and I'll tailor the presentation as we go. Anyway, this is the business that I've formed, First Step AI. Reaffirming their point, which is only 12% of Australian business leaders report that AI is transforming their organization, and 88% are still finding their feet. So you sincerely are not behind if you're feeling that way, but right now is your first mover's advantage. An LLM, which, likely will be a buzzword more and more people use, that's called what that stands for is large language models, and they are these databases, which are the Claudes, the ChatGPTs, the Geminis, the Groks, the Perplexity. If you've heard of any of those, they are all LLMs. They're these large brains that have been developed on a huge mass of information, and basically have been able to be programmed that where we as humans can layman speak and communicate with them. That's an LLM.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ash.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to add, majority of our participants here today are using ChatGPT, but they're also dabbling in Claude and Copilot.
Cool. Okay, great. Thank you. And it doesn't shock me dabbling in Claude. There is what we call the great migration going on at the moment. More and more people are adopting this. And for everyone's context, Copilot is backed by, like, the LLM that supports Copilot is ChatGPT and Claude. Just Copilot is a front interface. It's not an LLM in itself. So ultimately, between the whole group, we are sitting on ChatGPT and Claude. So I'll take you through that. And as an FYI, Copilot as an interface looks very, and operates very, very similarly to ChatGPT. So when you see the different features that I showcase in ChatGPT, note that they will be in Copilot as well. Anyway, so as I started out, an LLM is not a human, right? It operates in a very different way, and therefore we need to update our communication style to truly get the most out of it. Talking to it like a normal colleague won't get the best out of it, but understanding how it operates can mean that you can adjust and therefore truly reap the benefits. So the four really important things that go into the output or the quality of an output within an LLM is the input, so your prompt. Then what it does is it goes into tokenization, which it doesn't necessarily read everything as singular words. It actually chunkates or looks at things at group level, sentence level, as well as word level, which is where it differs from a human. And then it applies different weights to those words, sentences, or chunks. And also it looks at the relationship between those words, sentences, or chunks. And then it pulls on any available memory that it can to try and then generate a result that is something that you're looking for. But to be a good briefer, we actually don't want to be just a good talker. You want to use specific words, short sentences, and only one idea at a time with no filler. So like, I know we like to ramble when we talk in the kitchen, but AI doesn't do well here, right? Every unnecessary sentence is actually a distraction for the model that it needs to work around or wean out. because the model is not reading, your prompt in that same patient way that the colleague is and doing that filtration. It's reading absolutely everything and computing a relationship with every single word, every single sentence, every single truncation simultaneously. And so every time you put more filler or unnecessary context into your prompt, you're really bogging it down. And therefore, that's why rubbish in becomes rubbish out, or that ambiguity in becomes ambiguity out. So, and there's a few acronyms, but I really suggest you start here, which is the CREAF model, which basically is the best practice around prompting, right? You need to give it context. What is the situation in the background? And again, we will share this presentation afterwards so that you can see exactly the examples that I've built in here to give you more understanding. But you need to give it as much context as possible and relevant context. You need to give it a role. And this is quite an interesting one. Instead of speaking to a colleague, you already know its role, but like that might be an assistant or it might be a sales manager. And so you're automatically tailoring how you're speaking to them likely. But this LLM or person you're prompting doesn't know what it's meant to be at this stage. So you need to name what type of person, role, or model it should take on. Yeah, skill set it should take on. So like an experienced customer service professional, or a marketing assistant, or a national sales manager with 20 years experience, or an FBI negotiation specialist. You come up with whatever it needs to be. It really has the entire world set of information and experience at its disposal, but you need to be precise and name its role. Then give an example of what good looks like to you. Ask it, and so many people skip this, is actually ask it what you want it to do, and then give it a format of how you want the output to be delivered. Too often we do one of these and not all of these, and that's why it comes out with unpredictable or less than ideal outputs for you. I can give you a hack though. There's multiple services, providers, and software out there, but something called promptcowboy.ai is a website where you can go and be really lazy in how you're prompting. I just need directions to get to, Google's head office tomorrow. That's quite a lazy prompt. If you go and put it into promptcowboy.ai, it will turn it into a proper prompt, which you can then copy and put into your LLM. There's a few out there, but I really, when you're coming to large bodies of work that really need precise outputs and high quality outputs, I recommend that you go and use a tool, or make sure you use that CREAF and really tick off every one of them before you hit OK. And the second one, and I think this is a less known one, the second hack that I'd introduce you to is adding, before you respond, ask me any clarifying questions that would help you produce a better answer. Wait for my replies before proceeding. So we'll come into why that's really important, wait for my replies before proceeding. But this gives the LLM the opportunity to ask you clarifying questions to make sure that your prompt is completely robust before it generates an output for you. And it's really good at asking questions and clarifying questions, but lots of people they think it's a one-way conversation. Get it to start conversing with you. You'll get a lot more out of it. But that is prompting best practice, right? That should apply to absolutely everything that you're doing when you're interacting with an LLM. But the bigger piece that makes an LLM either great at output or bad at output is it comes down to context and memory. And I would assume most of you are on a paid subscription for either ChatGPT, the Claudes, or whatever. But as you can imagine, the cost to the companies to store absolutely every single thing you've ever put into ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot or whatever is astronomical. That at some point it needs to kill off some of the things that you've put in it because it simply does not have the capacity. We don't have the global storage to be able to manage that. But it doesn't know what context it should delete and what memory it should delete, that it makes assumptions here. And that's why you get some ambiguous outputs, even if you've told it in the past about a certain thing, project, or preference. But it simply doesn't have the capacity to hold it all. And it also doesn't know what correct context and memory that you want to hold on to versus just other things that were, a throwaway comment. So this comes to the problem, and this is where we start truly setting up the LLMs for success. So you might have opened up a chat within one of your LLMs. Context builds up, but once that session ends, so does a portion of that context, right? Because it simply can't store all of it. Then you also come into a new day, you open up a new chat. It's about the same topic that you were chatting about yesterday, but it starts from scratch. It doesn't know that yesterday's chat is a follow-on from today, and therefore it has no memory of A unless you're going to go and program that it should have memory of A. But you're assuming that it has memory of A, so you can see that this is why you think you've given it all the ingredients, but it's not programmed and it's not operating like that. The other thing is really long chats. I don't know if it's just me, but I go through really long chats on really large projects. But because it doesn't have the capacity, the ability from a cost perspective to keep all of your chat going, it will start deleting earlier context because it needs to load in more fresh context. That's really bad if you started with something that you now need to reference, but it's due to the length of your chat that it's now ruling out some of the context. It just didn't know that that context was really important. So how we deal with this and how you can get around this is system prompts and project prompts, and then using your CRAF, prompting best practice in addition to that. It sounds complex, but sincerely, system prompts and project prompts, you set just once, either system prompts once holistically forever. I'll talk to you through that in a second. And then project prompts, each time a project gets started, you just set up that master context once, and then you can use that as your reference point every single time you want to talk to that topic.
This is amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Ash. I think we should just jump in straight away for the demo and give you a chance to have a drink of water as well.
Thank you.
Guys, we have said 20 minutes, but it looks like we might finish more around the 3:30 mark. So stay with us because this is a really good, useful and practical tool that you want to implement straight after our session. Go for it, Ash, when you're ready.
Okay, so system prompts. What is a system prompt? And I've just put this on the screen here because everyone has slightly different ways based on your LLM nominating what a system and a project prompt is. But a system prompt is everything that you want to go across every single chat you ever have in ChatGPT or Claude. And sorry, I am losing my voice, but so I'm sure everyone hates an M dash, right? It's the key thing that clearly gives away that we've gone and generated an output through, an LLM. You can, through a system prompt, go and say on every single response, no matter what project it is, what chat it is, never give me an M dash. It's the same with emojis. You might want things really bullet pointed. You might want always to have like executive language or really casual language. This is where you can program your LLM to know your preferences across every single chat that you ever have. And then project prompts are around a specific topic. So say you're going for a tender, or say you're trying to do monthly analysis for a particular client. You can set up a project that just remembers or knows those specific things. That's where you get to upload the files and the different ins and outs of that client or that project. And it will save it as context for every single time that you want to jump into that. So what does a system prompt look like? So here's 5 layers of a system prompt, and ultimately you don't have to use every single one of these, but this is what best practice says, is who should your model be? Like, I'm an executive leader. I want professional, formal tone. And who should your model, like, how should your model work? You know, like, you always want it to be, let me jump into an example here. How should the model work? If something's ambiguous, always ask me about a clarifying question until you have 100% clarity. Always lead with the answer or the output. Don't presume. No narration, and no building to a conclusion. You'll see that LLMs are built in certain ways, and they're slightly different, Claude to ChatGPT, but this gives you the opportunity to brief it exactly how you want to operate across your entire set of chats or projects. And where this looks like, so if I just open up ChatGPT here, if you jump into your profile, you've got a button called personalization. Within personalization, you have custom instructions. So, you know, a system prompt I've generated before, it's the example that I've got in the presentation. I simply just go and copy and paste that in, and then save that, and then that now applies to every single chat that I have. So very, very straightforward. If we then jump into, so that's how you set up a system prompt, right? It's how it thinks, it's what it should be, the tones it has. As I said, I'm very citation based. I recommend most people are citation based at this stage, while LLMs are a little bit all over the show. But if you ever give me a reference, I want to see the citation so that I can click and open that. I also, I don't want M dashes. I don't want emojis. I don't want headers and short responses. This is where I get to program it fully how I want every response to come back. So that's Fantastic. A system prompt. Yeah. If we then jump into the difference, and Paula, did you have a question there?
No, I was just going to talk about the system prompt versus a project, because I've been kind of experimenting a little bit with Claude projects. So when would you use a system prompt opposed to a project prompt?
So think of the system prompt as something that you want to apply to every single project chat that you have. And that's where I say, no bullet points, no M dashes, no emojis, no headers. These are my preferences that no matter the project, I just don't ever want the LLM to do.
Okay, so across the board.
Across the board. Whereas a project, and let me use an example around a tender, right? Lots of businesses go for tenders, or maybe they have specific clients and you've got a body of work for that set of clients. So you want to, you can use projects to set up known information in and around either that client or that project or that tender, whatever it happens to be. And so if I give you the example here, is what is the project? Well, the project covers the preparation and submission of a competitive tender for a Sydney, and I've just given it's Sydney, New South Wales Park 123 upgrade contract, just a placeholder. The goal is to produce a complete, compliant, and compelling tender that represents our business capabilities, approach, and pricing, right? Then who is involved? Our business is involved. This is our business. So I'm trying to give it more context here that's naturally going to be saved. And then what has already been decided. So the tender submitted has a conforming response, right? I don't want the LLM to go and propose a different response, format or template. That's already decisions that have been decided. I get to preload them here. Also, what does good look like? I then can also load that in. what are the boundaries? Like, don't recommend things that are out of, no additional subcontractors, suppliers, or platforms outside of those that are already confirmed by the business and I've uploaded. So don't include pricing figures or rate schedules in narratives. Work, health and safety and insurance, they sit separately. You can basically tell it, don't include these things or don't make assumptions that these are included. These are your boundaries. And it's the same with the current status. So we're just in the scoping breakdown and we want to complete it and sign it off. The methodology are in draft. And this is ultimately why I'm setting up the project. And then what reference material is available? This is where I upload all of the attachments that I can. And I note that these following files are uploaded to this project and should not be used and should be used as reference when relevant, but do not treat them as instructions, right? Treat them as context. I'd be using this every single time so that it doesn't get confused that these are not instructions. And when I jump into, if we've saved this, we can jump out of here. If I've got the onboard outsourcing project, I jump over here to the 3 dots, the project settings, and then I can put all of those instructions in here. And let me go and grab them. I've done one here. We can go and copy and paste that in there, and then I hit save. It now has that context. Every single time I want to jump back into this chat and start asking its questions. I don't need to rehash all of that context. It has it as saved memory. So that's why it's really useful to use projects because it's saved memories. I don't need to rehash it, and I can just jump back every single time. And I can add as many sources as I would like here so that it's got those reference documents. I don't need to upload them every time.
Thank you so much for that, Ash. I was just going to say, like, obviously with a business, things evolve, economical situations, what have you. How often should a business go in and check their prompts, check the what the settings are, and refresh that to ensure their brand is always relevant?
I would say, like, you guys would know your business the best. If you've had a major change or a pivot, that is the time to update it. If you haven't, leave it as is. You really don't need to touch it.
Excellent.
And remember, from a project perspective, each time you're in that project and you start a new chat, it's logging that against the context of that project. So that's why they're really handy, because it's basically cataloging ongoing memory. So always use, if you're speaking about the same topic over and over, create a project so that it can catalog your memory for you.
Amazing. Look, with all these tools, obviously there is a cost involved, so we won't go into that, but I do want to ask you as an expert, and because I've heard some of the case studies that you've worked on, and I've also been collaborating with our offshore team. We've all been upskilling and, trying new things out, sharing stories. So when is it ideal for a company to take the project that they're looking to, get results on and take that to someone external like yourself? When is the right, what does that normally look like typically, where they can't really solve it? Is it someone that potentially doesn't have time poor, or
I actually put it down to the highest risk, right? So if you're dealing with a project that you want AI to support you on, and it's either dealing with very sensitive data and information, or it could create really bad brand reputation should a leak happen or something get out, I would be speaking to an expert. But if risk is low, there is a lot of tools and a lot of ways you can use ChatGPT or the Claudes to get the work done or automated yourself. But as soon as risk comes in, it's too risky to do yourself if you don't have the time and energy to really know what you're doing in the space.
Amazing. It's also part of the learning, I think, as well, right?
Yeah. And I would highly, the more you tinker with it, and that's the age we're in, is no one has all the answers and no one is a true expert across everything AI can do.
Of
We're
course,
all
and
in
it's
a
moving
learning
so
phase.
fast as well. So
Yeah,
we're
so
always having to keep up to speed, even the
yeah,
experts.
just get on a bike and start
Go.
learning.
You've
Think
got
you
an
can get,
idea, test it.
yeah, think,
That's what I
yeah.
say. Um, Thank you so much for joining us here today. And everyone, we will share Ash's notes there and sample prompts so that we can not be lazy at our end and make sure that we maximize our skills utilizing AI. And yeah, if you have any questions, by all means, just drop us a note.